how do we know that we are inflamed? How do we know that at the cellular level that we might be some of these things that you're talking about, this hormonal disruption, let's say, you talk about metabolic handcuffs in the book. How do we know that these things are happening? Are there signs and symptoms that we might look out for in everyday life?
Yes. So there's symptoms that you could pay attention to, and then there's some testing you can do. I'll start with the symptoms. The symptoms are really important. We have been brainwashed to believe that symptoms are evil. We should hate it. We should mask it up. That's more of the allopathic conventional sense that we need to prescribe a medication, perform a surgery, and there's a time and place for it. But for the most part, those symptoms are blessings. They're gifts. It's the body's way of communicating to you. Just yesterday, I drove from Miami to Fort Lauderdale for a podcast interview, and on my car, a little wrench has been showing for 2 weeks, showing that you're due for an oil change and a checkup, and I just been traveling and busy and not made the time for it. So this is a check engine light, essentially, and the symptoms are very similar. If I keep driving my car for years and I just ignore that little wrench, it's going to lead to a disaster, right? So the same thing with the body. Once we have symptoms, this is those little wrenches showing up. It could be brain fog, afternoon fatigue, you're starting to gain weight, your sleep is suffering, joint pain. I mean, there's a whole bunch of symptoms, but the symptoms are not the problem. They are a result of the problem. It's actually a blessing. The body's communicating to you in the form of symptoms. So the most common ones in terms of being a sugar burner, which I make the case is a fast path to a short lifespan and metabolic disease. The things to pay attention to when it comes to those symptoms are, hey, do you feel tired after eating a meal? Do you have more than 20 pounds of extra weight on your body? Do you have skin tags on your body around your armpit, your neck, your eyelids? Those are signs of hyperinsulinemia. Same thing with brown patches around the armpit, neck area, signs of hyperinsulinemia. And if you skip a meal by accident, do you get hungry and angry, hangry? These are signs that your metabolism is only burning sugar, the symptoms. Now, as we progress, we could test. And in terms of cell membrane inflammation, there's not an accurate direct blood test for that. There are indirect blood tests like high sensitivity C-reactive protein, great test, just looking at systemic inflammation. Personally, I want to see mine under 0.5 every time I test, and it usually is. We have homocysteine, another great marker for inflammation, cardiovascular risk of cardiovascular death. I want to see mine personally in the single digits as well. I would make the case that a fasting insulin, although is not considered a direct inflammation test, to me is one of the most important tests, and I use it as an inflammation test. And allow me to explain real quick. There are so many studies that I looked at that I put in the book. One of them that comes to mind right now is called the Whitehall 2 study that shows you could have full-blown hyperinsulinemia, insulin resistance, for on average 6 to 14 years without your fasting blood sugars changing or your A1C, the 3-month average of your blood sugars, changing at all. Meanwhile, you're insulin resistant because the pancreas is so busy, as you know, Stephanie, just producing massive amounts of insulin to clear the glucose until it cannot. And then your blood sugars rise dramatically, and then it's prediabetes, diabetes, et cetera. So a fasting insulin blood test is one of the most important tests that I would recommend for your metabolism. Personally, 3 to 6 is what I want to see. That means you're super sensitive. Unfortunately, there's a couple of problems with the test. Most conventional doctors don't order it because there's not a medication for high insulin. So you would probably have to pay out of pocket, but it is cheap. In the US, it's like $30 to $50. I don't know what it is in Canada. How much is it in Canada, Stephanie?
It depends. I mean, if you request it, it can be, sometimes it's pay out of pocket, sometimes it'll be covered. It's a bit of a crapshoot.
But it's not expensive, correct?
No, it's not expensive.
Okay.
No.
And then the second thing you want to pay attention to on that report, the reference range on LabCorp or Quest is going to be 3 to 25, 3 to 28.
Yeah.
Which is a problem because if you come back at 17, 12, 21, it's not being flagged as an issue, but that's insulin resistance. So we want between 3 and 6. So I would recommend those blood tests. I would throw in one more thing here, and then I'll stop. The best test looking at cell membrane inflammation, which is 50 times more accurate than any blood test looking specifically at the membrane, is a malondialdehyde test. Meta-oxy test is the one, it's actually a urine test that I order on a lot of clients. and you urinate into a vial. The vial has an agent in it, and it turns a certain color. The darker it turns a little red color. You match it to a chart, and it shows you how much cell inflammation you have. So it measures melandialdehyde, which is a free radical that comes off the cell membrane.
Okay, so these are really useful tips.